All right, it is 11:30 Central, so we will get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's webinar, Teen Interpersonal Skills for Life, Engaging Lessons for the Classroom. My name is Emily Klinsky. I am on the marketing team here at RealityWorks. Presenting today, we have with us Melissa Priester and Denise DuBois. Melissa has been a family and consumer science teacher for the past 19 years, working at the Gray Lakes Community High School's District 127. She enjoys teaching topics for youth around labor and delivery, teen living, family dynamics, and the Real Care Baby program. She is a longtime partner with RealityWorks, joining webinars to share classroom information and with other educators, and also to share ideas to ensure products and programs are fitting educator needs. Our other presenter today is Denise DuBois. She has been with RealityWorks for 10 years and is a frequent presenter, trainer, and blogger, all things related to Real Care Baby, health sciences, and soft skills. Denise has over 20 years of education, marketing, product design, and curriculum writing experience. She also is a current member of the Executive Council for NCHSE. Two fantastic resources for today's webinars. Before we get started, I do want to cover a couple things. First, today's presentation is being recorded and everybody will receive a link to that recording as well as a link to the PowerPoint slides that we'll be going over. You should see those in your inbox within 24 hours after the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have any questions or want to share any of your ideas, please feel free to use the chat feature down at the bottom and we will answer as many questions as we can at the end. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Melissa to get us going.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is so exciting as we venture into this unusual fall school year. I want to share a few of my lessons that I've come up with. Many of these have been tweaked from things that I have found through Pinterest and other FCS teachers throughout the course of my teaching. And of course, you know, like we all do, we adapt those lessons to how they work in our own curriculum. So let's get us started. Okay, sorry, there, now we're moving. So I just wanted to open up and say that family and consumer science teachers are really good at making our classes feel so warm and inviting. And when we talk interpersonal skills and talk about teen growth and development, having those warm environments is what makes the student grow and what makes that learner learn even more. I feel we are a very special breed and we do this very naturally. To kick off our interpersonal skills class, and honestly in my child development classes this looks a little bit different, but when we talk interpersonal skills, there are some pretty crucial things that I cover in order for the student to understand that what is said in the room, what is disclosed, stays in the room, that they understand why we are talking about the topics that we're talking about and how they are impacting themselves as a learner and as a teen and as a person of the community. We also have a privacy discussion at the beginning of the semester. And we talk about why it's so important that things aren't snapped out and that topics that are discussed and stories that are shared in the walls of our classroom stay there. They do sign a little privacy disclosure that, you know, things are going to stay there and it's not bound by anything, but hopefully them signing it means, you know, that they're going to recognize it and keep it. Now, I'm not saying that this is a counseling group. It's not social work. It's not a counseling group, but we all know that when you start talking about real life, many different stories come out from students. And so I always like to have that umbrella that they are safe, that we can talk openly, and that we are going to respect everyone's views. We are going to discuss and we are going to, you know, see each other as individuals. I also discussed that I am a mandated reporter, and I do disclose that typically on day 1 or day 2, only because many students don't understand what a mandated reporter is. and the responsibilities of teachers and staff in the building and coaches. And because we are talking about, you know, life and their home life and their friends, it's important that they understand that if I ever hear of anything that I'm concerned about, that their well-being is so important to me that I want to talk to them and talk to the guidance counselors and the deans and make sure that they are safe. And typically they actually appreciate knowing that information. So to kick off our community as a classroom, in the beginning of every class period, I put together a packet of adult coloring pages that have positive sayings on it. I also include in there different journal topics. And we spend the first 5 minutes of every class period that we are together journaling, coloring, being disconnected from our technology. So no phones, no AirPods, nothing. Sometimes I do play music in the background, depending on the topic. But the first 5 minutes while I'm taking attendance, while I'm getting my thoughts collected, they are spent coloring and they are spent journaling about maybe a topic that we're going to talk about that day. And it's a way for them to disconnect from maybe what happened in the hall, maybe what happened in last period, and to hopefully center themselves. So they are there as a whole person, ready to tackle the topic of the day. Students have reported that this is one of their most favorite things. They actually ask for a special Friday every once in a while to just color, just simply sit there and color and not really think about anything. They really, really like that they can just have time for themselves. So again, it's just building that community, building that trust with the class and the student so that you can have some deeper conversations about real life skills. So on day 2 or in the beginning of the semester, I introduced this Who Am I letter, which is a letter to me. And this is one of their few journals that I collect and I hold on to. And I prefer that they handwrite them. I think handwriting is really important, especially when it comes to letter writing. You'll hear about this later on also in this presentation. Obviously, with going 100% remote for the fall for my school, this will be done on a Google Doc. But, you know, if I was in the classroom, they would be handwriting them. But this is a letter to me explaining life events that have impacted their life and kind of created this new teenager that's standing in front of me. So it could be anything from just moving. It could be something from a divorce or a death or a birth of a baby. It could be a loss of a friend. It could be a breakup. It could be, you know, I want them to include as much as they feel comfortable. And of course, with anything, if they disclose something and I'm concerned about it, we always have that understanding that I will reach out to my guidance staff and other people to make sure that they are safe. But this gives me a look into the student that is sitting in my room a little deeper than a question and answer thing. I also use this information when I'm talking about sensitive topics so that I can steer the conversation and I can hit on certain topics that might be impactful for that student. I also use it to pull the student sometimes aside before we talk about a certain topic, say abuse, and give them a heads up that we are going to be covering a topic that might be a little tough for them to handle that day. And again, you know, whenever I'm talking to family consumer science teachers, we are so good about looking at that whole student and looking at triggers. And so again, just making them feel comfortable in the room. And whether that student has to sit out for the day because of the topic, we can always find an alternate assignment for them. So the Who Am I letter gives me that peek into the student that not a questionnaire just can't. So when we talk family relations, we also cover our family challenges. And as we know, family challenges can be anything from a positive or a negative challenge that the family goes through. I found this activity probably on Pinterest, the flower pot activity. I changed it to a plate activity because honestly, I could not afford to buy 20 flower pots for my class, and I wanted each and every student to do it. Culinary happened to be switching out their plates that year, and so we had a bunch of leftover plates that the district said I could use. So that was the thing that I used. This could be done with anything that's breakable. I actually pondered using mugs at one point for this. So anything that would break. On day one, I give them the plate or the flower pot, something big enough to write on. I actually avoided those itty bitty flower pots because I was concerned that they wouldn't be able to express all the things that they wanted to, and it wasn't going to have as big of impact. Again, look at what your district can utilize or you can get. Using permanent markers, and again, I borrowed them from art because we didn't have enough in our department for every kid to use it for the time being. So I borrowed some from the art class, and having them write or draw things that make the family strong. So positive words, pictures, they designed them. Man, students love this. Oh my goodness, they could have spent all week decorating these plates, and they loved them. They were so proud of them, and they were taking pictures of them with my approval. And again, they were just gloating about these plates and everything. What they didn't know was on day two, we were going to crush them. So we placed the flower pot in a bag, something that you can seal, either paper bag or plastic bag or garbage bag, making sure that it was 100% sealed so none of the shards went to places that could danger any of the students. And I varied it a little bit from the original one. The original one said to have them use hammers and smash them, or mallets. I chose to have them drop them. We had tile in our classroom, and so I had them stand up. Some students even stood up on the chairs, not wheelie chairs, just plain chairs, and they dropped them all at the same time. So that it made a very big impact on the student. And you know, just the moment that they realized that they had to break this plate, that they had spent so much time, it was really hard for them, and some of them even cried. Now, again, having to adapt it, I did have a student with an anxiety problem that loud noises was a trigger. So right before we broke the plates, I had her take a walk far enough away so she wouldn't have a panic attack. We dropped the plates, the class, roared. And when they settled down, I went out into the hall and we did the plate breaking together, just her and I, in a quiet place. But she was still included. And then she came back into the classroom and followed through with the second piece, which was trying to mend this plate or this family back together. On the original one, it said to write words that would mend, that, therapy, words that would bring the family back together. My students were in such a rush to get the plates back together. They were so bent at having to crush these that they didn't really want to take the time, plus they were getting frustrated. So I kind of threw that piece out the window and decided that they were going to reflect on all of that the next day anyway. So I was okay letting that piece of the project go. They mended it as best they could. Some of the plates were unmendable, which again came back to day 3 when we reflected on it. Some of them were able to mend it halfway. And again, looking at it from a family in crisis, when we go through that crisis and we, break down and we bring back our families, there's always a few pieces of ourselves that are still lost. So on day 3 at the beginning of the class, they went through, instead of a traditional journal or coloring, they actually did this reflection. as to how to bring back the plate, or how they felt during this. And then we discussed it as a class and how our families, sometimes it's really tough to, mend them. Sometimes it's fairly easy to mend them after crisis. I think of it similar to like the toothpaste activity where you squeeze the toothpaste and you tell the student to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So this definitely has an impact on the students. And again, they still talk about it. The ones that I still am connecting with right now, they still talk about how much this activity impacted their life. So again, something that you can think of. I am still brainstorming how to make this into an e-learning activity. I'm still pondering that. The gratitude letter is a unique letter that can be slipped into any unit, really, that you need something of this, some type of formal assessment here. It's not really formal, but authentic assessment. So you talk about different ways that people impact our lives. We've, of course, did a reflection. And again, this could be done at the beginning of the class period where they list out the names. This is one of the few times that I allow actual names to be listed out and the impact they had on those people. I also have them discuss in their journal people that they have impacted. And sometimes it's not even a person. Sometimes it's an animal that they have had a positive impact on, so that they can kind of bring it back full circle and see that they have made positive influences on people. But one thing I have found that throughout my years is they don't know how to address envelopes very well. So we do spend some time addressing envelopes and learning how to do that correctly. Again, I bring up the handwriting for this. I prefer it. I feel it has a more personal connection. It's like handwriting a thank you note. It's just more personal than typing it out. I expect about 1 page to 2 page, enough to get, their gratitude across. And then again, setting a firm deadline. The first time I did this, I had a big heart and students were coming to me and were like, oh, I can't think of anyone, or I can't get so-and-so's address. And I had a big heart and was like, okay. And then some of them never turn them in. So the second time I did it, I set a firm deadline, and sure enough, they all, or majority of them, had it turned in correct addresses. I understand finding addresses is not always easy. We do have to dig sometimes or address it to a former school. We get creative. The point being that they're learning how to address the envelope, learning how to write a letter, okay? And those are just unique skills. I know they get them in other classes, but seeing that cross-curricular, I think is really important. You don't need to use my point values. It was just something I already had typed up. And for the rubric, it was just a standard letter writing rubric that I think I pulled, sorry, excuse me, from the internet somewhere and changed a few points to fit my criteria here. So the different letters, these are just people I chose to use. The first letter going to a friend or a classmate, and yes, I did have them still address that envelope to their friend or classmate who doesn't like to get mail. And so I wanted those to go through the mail. Teacher, coach, boss, again, yes, they all addressed them. Even if it was a teacher in the same building, they addressed it to the school. And then family member. And again, a family member could be anyone. I had a few students that actually wrote to family members that had passed away, that they still felt a real connection. And those were actually really powerful moments in the class that, they were writing like to their grandmother or their uncle that had passed away. We mailed them to the households or to their house. And then they did with them what they wanted to do. But again, just having them write those letters and thank that person for the impact that they made on their life. Just, again, those real life powerful skills. Just a few other brainstorm activities that I've come across in the few years. I know I've shared this one on the Facebook page before, but my sticky note activity, and this is not Pinterest worthy whatsoever. You can see this was thought up of really kind of quickly, but it's been one of my favorite ones to do throughout the 10, 11 years that I've been teaching this specific class. I give a handful of sticky notes to every student at the beginning or at the end of actually one class period, all the same color. This one I try to make as anonymous as possible because I want the students to share. I even go as far as, if they're uncomfortable, that they could text me or email me what they want, and I will write it down. Okay. On the board are these different topics that challenges that families go through, or stressors in the family. Good, bad, so like having a baby, depression, military, death, illness, addiction. And of course, they've kind of changed over the years as different stressors have come up. Financial and money one was a huge one about 10 years ago. It still is now, but it's different things have come and gone. It's interesting. And then they write down, I instruct them to just write down the titles of the stressors that their families are facing. No names, just so they write down college. They write down depression on it. They put them back in the stack. I collect them. Before class the next day, I put them up on the board. And when the students walk in, what they see is what you're looking at now. So they see that huge collection of sticky notes, all on the same ones that they had written down. And what they realize is they're not alone. So many teens feel so alone that their family is the only one that's going through financial problems, or they're the only one that's, their parents have gotten a divorce. And I mean, we know otherwise as teachers, but they do not. They always feel like they're the only ones that is going through that situation. So it's a powerful moment where they see that in their class, everyone is in the same boat. And then of course, the reflection for that day revolves around the sticky notes. So they choose one. Sometimes it's one that they are willing to share and kind of talk about. Again, it's not a group session, but we use it when we talk about different family challenges and how we overcome them. I always spin it to have the student think about how their family overcame that challenge or how they are overcoming that challenge. Or on the other hand, maybe they didn't overcome it and how that has impacted the family. So just, using this to make them realize that they are not alone. And then from there, we typically go into the plate or the flower pot activity. And then the last one here, this friendship terminology. This brainstorm is not anonymous, or it doesn't have to be anonymous, but it is a good way of introducing different terms. And I've used it for different topics, not just friendship. I've actually also used it in prenatal development and labor and delivery to see what students think are the definitions of different words. Both of these activities, these brainstorms, actually, I had come up with a conclusion. I was going to use Google Forms for my e-learning, and you can make that anonymous and have them still reflect and give me the true definition and then share out that information. Just was brainstorming how to make it useful for e-learning. But with this one, again, they're giving just the definition No names. I never want names. And then we use it in our discussion, and we use it moving forward. Many students don't even realize the difference between a good friend and great friend. They don't really even know what a toxic friend is or a bully and how to recognize it. And then moving forward, we use these same terms when we talk dating also, or similar terms when we talk dating. So again, just ways to get that student involved in the discussion. So it's not just a teacher driven, here is the definition and you have to memorize it, making it as a community in your classroom instead of teacher and student. So I think that is all I have. And Denise?
Thank you, Melissa. And those are some terrific ideas. I am sure our participants in today's webinar are going to find those very, very useful as they go into the fall. So appreciate your thoughtful comments there. Before we wrap up, I just have some free resources for teaching interpersonal skills that we'd like to share today. So next slide. First of all, I want to share these two access sites with you. The first link, we have been sharing all of our curricula and guides since COVID rocked our world in March. We want to make sure that you have all of the materials you need in order to be able to teach this fall. And we have some really good ones as they relate to interpersonal skills. So again, the first link that you see there, you click on it and it will take you to all of our curricula that accompany our FACS resources. And you would just click on FACS and then you could click on any of the products and they will take you to the curricula and lesson plans. And the second link is one that we usually provide to our Real Care Baby customers, but this gives you access to all of the Real Care curricula specifically. And we're going to talk more about which parts of the curricula are specific to interpersonal skills, but these include things like slide presentations, instructions, handouts, and assessments. So I wanted to make sure that all of you had these links and knew that these were available to you as you begin to plan more of your fall instruction. So moving on, we are going to take a look at the 4 curricula that are available to the Real Care program specifically. And the first one is Healthy Choices, Relationships, Sexuality, and Family Planning. This is a high school level curriculum, and this is the one that most closely aligns to teaching those interpersonal skills. The second one that we have specific to that topic is Life Skills and Healthy Choices for middle school students. And these 2 curricula focus on relationships, communication, sexuality, and making good, healthy choices. And again, one is at the high school level and one is more at the middle school level. So moving on to the next slide, I just wanted to point out that all of our curricula follow the same basic lesson plan format. There are 3 sections. First of all, each of the lessons will have a focus section, which kicks off the lesson. It engages students in the content, captures their interest, and then we move into the learn section. And that's generally the middle, maybe 30 minutes or so of each lesson. And that's where the students will learn those key objectives. And then each of the lessons will end up with a summary or some type of short review activity. It could be an assessment, it could be a journaling or a writing activity, but it's just meant as a way to review those key points. And all of our curricula do come with assessment. So if you decide to teach all of the lessons in one of those 4 curricula that was on the prior slide, we provide a pre and post summative assessment along with an answer key. So it makes it really an easy way for you to assess student understanding of these concepts and also to report on objective knowledge gained over the life of the lesson and the courses that you teach. So we're going to start now with some of the lesson topics that are included in our Healthy Choices curriculum. And they're specifically the first 5 lessons really focus on those interpersonal skills, including plans and values, influences around us, communication and self-esteem, and communication in relationships and just relationships in general. So each of the lessons are full of activities, slide presentations, role-playing discussions, and more. So definitely check these out if you're looking for interpersonal skills ideas. And again, those can be found in Healthy Choices for the high school or Life Skills and Healthy Choices for middle school students. So we are now going to look at a sample activity found in the lesson on communication and relationships found in our Healthy Choices curriculum for high school level students. So in this lesson, students apply communication skills that they've learned in various scenarios, situations, and they also do an interview with a parent or the guardian. Now we know that peer pressure will play, really an enormous role in how young people think and act. So the activities in this lesson will give your students the skills that they need to respond to things like peer pressure or sexual pressure situations. So students need to practice skills in order to use them in real life. So we have an activity called the I don't think so activity that will give your students a safe place to practice important refusal skills illustrated in many different scenarios. So on our next slide, we're going to take a look at just a couple scenarios from this lesson. So your students would look at this and say, a friend's been drinking and wants to drive to get some food. He wants you to go with him. So you would have them discuss and role play that. Another one, you are at a friend's house and the parents are away on vacation. His older brother, who just graduated from high school, comes home with friends, goes to the fridge and starts to drink a beer. He offers you and your friend one. Your friend takes the beer and starts to drink it. You don't want to. So if your students have a chance to think through and reflect and role play, then they may be able to handle a situation like that in real life if that is something that happens to them. So this is just one example of multiple activities in a lesson from that curricula. Now we're going to take a look at an activity from the Healthy Choices program at the middle school level. And this lesson is from the Does the Media Affect Sexual Decision Making? Now this lesson really gets participants to understand the powerful effect that the media can have on their minds and in their decision making. So part of this lesson includes a ready-to-use slide presentation, and this shows your students many examples of ads targeting teens for a variety of products. So your students will be divided into small groups, and they're going to complete the form that's media influence worksheet that's in the curriculum. And remember, you have access to all of this. And they will consider the examples from the slide presentation and their own experiences. So I have two examples of some of the slides from that lesson in the next two slides. So if we can move on to the next slide, here's one. And they can be asking themselves, how does it influence or does it influence your behavior, your decisions, or anything in your life when you would see something like this? So here's an example of one that would be a Lucky brand. And now the next one is Ralph Lauren romance. Does it affect the way you behave? So, when you're bombarded as a young person with all sorts of advertisement, it could be in print, it might be on TV, could be in social media, but they're getting so many messages all of the time to have them really stop and think explicitly, is this having an effect on me and in what way? It really opens their eyes so that the next time they see something like this, they can recognize it for what it is. We also do many free webinars on a variety of topics, and we record them and we save them. We have many relating to soft skills or employability skills. And interpersonal skills really fall squarely into that area also. So we wanted to make sure that you knew about all of these archived soft skill webinars because you might find some additional activities that you'd like to try as well. All you have to do is click on the link and it would take you to all of the different webinars. Typically the webinars run about 30 minutes, but a lot of them have some good teaching tips. So you might find some that you might even be able to adapt to a remote learning environment for this fall. We also do have a few other additional resources that we'd like to point you toward. First of all, we do have a blog, and we frequently invite guest writers to write on many related topics of interest to facts, interpersonal skills being one. So that's one place you could go to. We also have social media. We do Facebook, we do Twitter. So connect with us on those places as well. You will find things shared by other teachers on our Facebook site that will be lesson ideas and things that they have tried in their classrooms. So again, if you haven't looked at those before, you may find that they're a good source for some additional ideas. So at this time, we would like to open it up for Q&A. I know Emily has been watching the chat and the Q&A area, and we've got several questions I know that have been posted already, and we will address those now.
Yeah, so the first question that we had come in was, what if a student does not want to sign the privacy disclosure?
Oh, good question. Honestly, I've never had that situation come up, but if I did, I would have a discussion with that student as to why they are feeling that way, what is going on, and, have open it up for, discussion with that student and see what they're thinking. If they're nervous about the class, again, talking to them about what the class entails and moving forward with that. But honestly, I've never had anyone say, no, I don't want to sign it. So I would have to think more about that. That's a good question.
Awesome. And then we had another question come in when you were going over the flower pot activity and plate activity. Were there any concerns about students having worked with sharp edges of the broken plates?
There weren't. I did think about that though, as it was going on, and it was, one of those kind of fly by the seat of your pants moments when I was doing it. But the plates really weren't that sharp. Now, we did make sure that they were put onto, tinfoil coated trays so that they were easily cleaned up. Like, I really made sure that there was no shards left over that could harm anyone. But yes, that is something to think about maybe when you're looking at the age and the type of students that you're working with, and decide if it would be an appropriate activity for them.
Awesome. And then Denise, we had a question for you regarding the lessons. How do you implement these online, and can these worksheets be uploaded to Google Docs?
Yes, we have just recently, since March, we've had a lot of people wanting our Real Care curricula and activities in a Google Doc format, and we now have that available. When you click on the curriculum links online, you will see another area where it says available as Google Docs. So when you start to go in and work with them, you should be able to find that information in the curriculum.
Okay, and then we just did have somebody comment in on the flower pot activity. They suggested that placing it in a paper bag, and then that would address any safety concerns. So a little suggestion for that. And then a question, do you have any suggestions or lessons related to stress of students transition from high school to adulthood?
For me or Denise, so
Go ahead, Melissa.
okay. My curriculum, my student body is freshmen through seniors, so I always have a mix. Sometimes I'm heavier on the senior side, like last year. Other times I'm heavier on the freshman side. It's always interesting. I do a stress unit. Typically, it's kind of sandwiched right after family challenges before we start talking about friendship and dating and all that stuff. We do some yoga in there. We do some deep breathing activities in there. And again, we do that coloring, and we try to go back to mindfulness, and we talk about how to recenter ourselves as a student and as a teen. They really like it. I don't know if it's 100% geared towards just, a freshman transitioning, or, just a high schooler going through high school. We also do it around finals. Right before finals, I do another like mental health day, we call them, where again, it's, the room is dark. We do some yoga or some deep breathing activities. We do some adult coloring. We just, we mold with clay and Play-Doh, and the phones are away. Again, just reconnecting with themselves.
Awesome. And then a question about the flower pot activity again, wondering how you afforded it for all of your students. Do you have any discount source you would purchase items from?
So because we were transitioning our plates, we had an abundance of leftover plates from our culinary classrooms, which we have 2 culinary classrooms. So I just happened to walk into it. It is something that I have thought about for future when I don't have that resource that I would have to budget for. No, I don't have any tips. Sometimes you can get the deals at Lowe's or at one of the home goods stores that maybe they're on sale towards the end of the summer season. I did think about that. Or going, I did think about the dollar store and using mugs as opposed to, or even plates. You could, and $1 a student, depending on how many students you have. No, it's not the most cost-effective activity, I'll be honest, it's not, but it is very impactful if you can figure out how to make it work.
Perfect. And then Melissa, somebody had a question. Would you be willing to share your course syllabus or scope and sequence?
Yeah, definitely. I am tweaking it. Obviously it's taking a whole new look right now as we go into the fall, but yes, I could share that with you guys and you can hand it out.
Emily,
Also,
we could include that in the post email with the recording link.
Perfect. Yeah. And then also they're wondering if they could get a copy of your privacy disclosure.
Oh, definitely. Yes, I'll include that too.
Awesome. And then with the plate activity, did you use glue to put them back together?
So I had masking tape on hand. Again, it was I had masking tape, which is a little bit cheaper than Scotch tape. So that's what they used. Some used, I guess, duct tape. The glue didn't work very well. And I wanted the visual of them actually taping it back. Some kids wanted to use hot glue gun. Again, I didn't have it, but that is a thought. Also, while I was thinking about the shards and the broken pieces, you could have the students wear gloves if you were worried about that. Rubber gloves would also protect their hands from any sharp pieces if that was a concern.
Awesome. And then this is a question regarding Real Care Babies. This has not been discussed, however, for child development classes and using Real Care Babies seem to be a concern right now. What are some of the modifications that could give students a similar experience?
Is that from, I guess, from some of the things we're hearing, we've been talking to some educators who have made the decision that baby is still going to be a take-home project. This works if you're in a hybrid model. Let's say you're in school 2 days and off 2 or 3. You can still program them ahead, send them home, but they're really making sure that when they come back, wiping them down with the antibacterial wipes, the Perel wipes, that kind of thing. And then also, if you wanted to just have them take home, one of the clothing pieces instead of having multiple to have to clean, there's ways around that. Or maybe you sanitize the baby and then you put it in a plastic bag and that's how you hand it out. So I know that teachers are planning to still use it as a take-home activity in some cases. Now, if you're totally remote and you will not be seeing your students in order to be able to deploy and get them back, in that case, you may have to think creatively. If you remember, Real Care Baby came about in its genesis as an alternative to the use of eggs and flour sacks. If they're at a home environment, we may see teachers wanting to go back to having them assigned to take care of an egg or a sack of flour in their home environment for a number of days and get that experience of having to be a caretaker for a thing. It's not great, but it would work. It could work.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in because this has been going around through my brain. We're starting remote, but there is the hope that maybe we go hybrid later on. And yes, I hope that baby is able to go out. Also, your district has to approve that can be released and be cleaned properly. I have brought it up and they are holding me back right now. So I actually thought about the egg in the flour sack and was debating how I would make that work if I had to. I really don't want to. I want to hand out baby. But yes, you know, we're pondering all those things as it moves forward here. All these unique situations.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. And then somebody just put a suggestion regarding the plate and flower activity, that you could use a heart and then have them tear it up and then put the heart back together. So somebody did throw that suggestion out there. And then we do have a question: where do we get the presentation and forms? Within 24 hours after this presentation, we will be sending out we'll be sending out a recorded link to this presentation and the PowerPoint slides, and then also the rubric and disclosure that Melissa mentioned.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your suggestions and participation. And a really big thank you to Melissa for sharing all those great ideas today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.